you playing?
Hello, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game many times bad and tell you why the bleep we played it. I am Battering Ram Sean. This is Road Rage Thomas. And Mason, whose engine stopped. And we played... Twisted Metal 2012. Woo! How you guys doing?
Yes, we've all discovered the meaning of Ford. It's found on Road Dead.
What?
Never mind. That was funnier in my head. Anyways, Twisted Metal 2012. This was my game.
Kind of reboot of Twisted Metal.
It's full-on reboot, but I'm assuming if they ever go back, they'll just kind of do whatever they want. So,
Because I mean, it's been what 11 years now.
yeah.
Because this was the last entrance. So far, has been the last entrance in the Twisted Metal franchise, excluding the upcoming TV show, which we definitely didn't do this show in preparation for.
No, it was planned before it, definitely. And,
Absolutely.
and then, boom, that announcement came down. Yeah, I had basically no experience with Twisted Metal coming into this. Outside of growing up, we had a demo disc that I got with my PlayStation that had the first Twisted Metal, I think first Twisted Metal, it might have been the second one on it, and so I'd played first or second level of that, and it was primarily racing than more of the destruction what they were showing off.
I can't believe you didn't have the Star Wars Twisted Metal ripoff.
Oh, I played it.
What's it called?
Star Wars Demolition.
Is that what it's called? Yes.
It's
Star Wars Demolition with the
that game has some
with the dangly Boba Fett legs.
Yeah,
that game has some controls.
that game sucks.
You thought you liked didn't like Phantom Menace controls. Play Demolition.
Well,
So
now
it's
I'm not
that
gonna.
Bad, but it's not that bad, but it is not a good game.
That is unfortunate. We decided to play a good game instead.
So Thomas is the most experienced when it comes to Twisted Metal here.
AKA, I've played like 3 of the games. I've played this game 2012. I've played Head On, I've played Head On Extra Twisted Edition, which is the PS2 port of the PSP game, and I've played Twisted Metal Black.
Which was the one before this one, which I believe was 2004?
Yeah.
I say?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the one that came up before this. So there was like a... Oh, man, I gotta do math. It's like an 8-year gap between entries, right? Yeah.
In between home console entries, because
like
there's the PSP game that then got ported over to the PS2.
Yeah, which came out in like 2006, I believe.
And then the PSP port came out, the PS2 port was what... I literally have it here. 2008.
Okay.
So, was the PS2 port.
So I always thought that the most interesting part about playing this game would actually be playing this game, but Sean, you found a lot of interesting things about the developer.
Oh, yeah.
And
very
possibly
much.
an explanation as to why we haven't gotten a new entry in the series in 11 years.
I guess we'll start with that Twisted Metal had been taken over by company in 2007, sorry. The director of the Twisted Metal series, as well as God of War, David Jaffe, joined Scott Campbell, and they formed a company called Eat, Sleep, Pray, which had a PlayStation exclusive...
you mean Eat, Sleep, Play, right?
Play, my bad.
I was going to say, that's...
That's very different.
They didn't make the sequel to Eat, Pray, Love. Eat, Sleep, Pray.
Look, they pray to Sweet Tooth. It's all good. Kratos and Sweet Tooth save us.
So that's why they were rivals in PlayStation All-Stars.
But yeah, Eat, Sleep, Play, they created this company, and it was a PlayStation exclusive. They were either going to make 3 games, or one game had to have at least a 3-year development. Those were the stipulations for the exclusivity. So the first thing they did is they took the PSP port, which Scott Campbell, I believe, the company he worked at beforehand, is who developed the PSP game. So they took that and ported it over. And then they spent the next 3 years working on Twisted Metal. And it was a long process. There are delays in it.
Yeah.
Their decision-making, deciding to make the cinematics kind of live action.
They're kind of live action, but the environments are like in engine, I think.
Yeah,
like
it's very stylistic. There's some decision makings there, and by the time this game came out, David Jaffe had left the company.
I was like, fuck this, I'm going
and
home.
the company did not make another console game.
Yeah, they made a couple phone games and then got absorbed into Avalanche.
So yeah, and so it's potential that some of the people who worked on this game would then go on to make the Cars 3 game and Hogwarts Legacy.
So 1-2 punch.
It's a low potential, but there is some potential. You are correct.
So yeah, it's like these two guys came together to form a super company in a lot of ways. Like, this is going to be PlayStation's big company. We're gonna make all. What do you mean we're gone?
What do you mean we're only making phone games?
And
we made 2 Twisted Metals, and that was it.
Yeah,
what was the other one? Black?
It's the PS2 port.
Oh, Head On?
Yeah, it's Head On Extra Twisted Edition, which they ported over from the PSP to the PS2. So yeah, they did not live up to the kind of hype of, God of War guy and God of War director, Twisted Metal director. They're going to make a game company, and they're going to start with a reboot of Twisted Metal. Oh my gosh, the PlayStation is going to be having one of their new. Oh, they're making phone games now.
They were supposed to be one of their tentpole developers, and then which is weird because you'd think they'd go out on like a bad game, but this is a really fun game.
Well, here's the thing about this game, and again, yes, we played a lot of the multiplayer, and let me tell you, this might be some of the most fun multiplayer that we've played on this podcast. It's up there maybe with Nightfire.
I'd put it right below Nightfire. Nightfire was a religious experience.
Of us just having an absolute blast playing multiplayer.
Really fun.
This game was fun.
Its critics, and again, it's decently reviewed. 76% on 76 out of 100 on Metacritic.
IGN gave it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, IGN had a really high review. Its averages are 8 out of 10. So again, this game was reviewed very, very well. People who bought it, however, had a lot of complaints.
So like the audience score and the critic score.
A little bit again. It's not that they didn't love this game or even it's not that there was a huge dislike for this game. It's that for a multiplayer experience in a time when I think some of this multiplayer was fading, this type, especially because we played local multiplayer. Thank God for local multiplayer. We love you. Yes. But it did also have online.
Online was kind of the big focus.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's all the ranks, legions, stuff like that.
And they really shorted the one-player story mode.
Yeah, that's right. Because we were talking about that earlier. How that there were like very few actual cutscenes because the main director was like pulled a
Masahiro Sakurai.
Yeah, pulled a Masahiro Sakurai.
The reason he doesn't make Subspace Emissary style story modes anymore
is because people are going to watch them on YouTube.
Yeah, they're just going to watch them on YouTube anyways, which is like, I mean, that's such it's infuriating. It's
infuriating. A bit. There's also the element of like the unlockables are almost all for online mode.
I believe the unlockables are for online. Well, okay, so here's the thing. Most of the stuff you guys played today was supposed to be locked.
Yes.
But it's only locked to the single player, and then I guess it carries over to online, if I'm correct. Whereas local multiplayer, you just get it all.
You just get it all, which is, I think, actually kind of a smart move. I kind of like having the multiplayer.
Like that.
That's actually pretty smart.
It's really smart. So, like, I like that a lot. That, like, yeah, if you're gonna play with friends and sit down and battle royale it for a while, you don't need to have the unlockable. Okay, if you're going to progress stories or you're going to play people online and you're going to do stuff, okay, yeah, let's put that. You have to actually play a bit.
I believe that's the case.
So like that's a really cool thing. But part of why they didn't have like unlockable characters or things like that was all they basically said. Well, people don't need rewards. They're going to watch stuff on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's just so stupid.
Which is interesting coming from a guy who would literally leave the company before this game actually came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like what. Yeah. Why would you go through all that trouble and then not even be a part of it when it releases?
Might be just personal things.
I think it's mostly that. Yeah, it's one of those that's just like, well, this was not working out like they thought it was. So like, I think.
So it was kind of like a Duke Nukem Forever type thing.
Yeah, but a better game.
Yeah,
but a better game.
And less. It doesn't seem like. Again, I don't. There's not a lot on the inner personalities of the company. I just think some of it maybe they had an idea, and Jaffe and Campbell, they're coming off of God of War 2, and they were really like, okay, we want smaller scale games, and so this is a lot smaller scale, but it took 4 years of development, to go. So like, there's maybe some of that is like, I wanted smaller scale. I didn't want 4-year development time.
Right.
So
I can imagine that being.
Might be what he ended up.
There might have been just a little burnout, honestly, because God of War 2 is a massive game.
Yes.
Especially like for the PS2, it's a massive game.
Yeah.
So I think it's just one of those that like there's just some weird development stuff that I think led this game to maybe not being like while it was the critic success, maybe not the huge sale and financial success, which is probably why Twisted Metal's kind of sat on the back burner for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many Sony franchises just get set on the back burner.
Well, Sony's really bad sometimes about like they're like, if this franchise is going to compete, let's look at Killzone for example. This is going to be our Halo. Oh, it's a fine game, but it's not Halo. We don't want it anymore.
Yeah, we don't want it anymore.
They do that. They do that a lot.
That is something that happens a lot with Sony.
There's a reason why of the PS2 platformer icons, Ratchet is the only one that's still continued.
Yeah, because it's the financial one.
I think that's sort of like something that the video game industry does as a whole. That like they set their sales expectations really, really high to the point where like even when a game does really well, it didn't do well enough. It's like
we call that the Metroid effect.
Call that the Nintendo in general.
Yeah, but like Metroid does fine, but never like extremely well. But at least we're still getting Metroid games. Like that's unlike some of these.
Yeah, the only exception to that was Dread, which sold like buku bucks. Meanwhile, like something like Kid Icarus Uprising sold really well, but it didn't sell like 80 million copies. So Nintendo's like, it's a failure.
It's not in the top, especially Nintendo when they focus on stuff is like, is it in our top 10? Did it sit in our top 10 downloads for a month? Cool. We're going to keep working on that. Oh, it didn't? Sorry. Which is why Metroid Dread did succeed because it did a lot of those things. It's why they keep making so many Fire Emblem games.
Yeah, because Fire Emblem games always sell.
It's why Mario Kart and Splatoon get so many DLCs.
Yeah.
So I also kind of wonder if there's like someone at Sony kind of doing what Nintendo does with F-Zero, and it's like, oh well, we'll make another Twisted Metal as soon as we have another idea for another Twisted Metal. When in reality, that good idea for the next Twisted Metal is another Twisted Metal. Yeah, like that's your idea.
Yeah,
Go with it.
I mean, with kind of the rise of the arena multiplayer online games, I could see Twisted Metal easily coming back. Like that.
Yeah,
that it fits very much. Now, am I going to sit and play a lot of online games? No, not necessarily. That's not my necessary forte. But like, it really does fit kind of the modern games. It's kind of wild that it is not something that we've seen brought back.
Yeah,
maybe if the success of the show, that might be something.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of going into the gameplay now. The way I described it while I was playing it, it's like Call of Duty with cars is really how it felt like. It felt like doing one of those like local multiplayer bot battles in Call of Duty, but instead of people with guns, it's cars with guns, and sometimes even people with guns in cars.
So my comparison is going to be really odd, but bear with me here.
Oh boy, here we go.
Did you guys ever play the Donkey Kong 64 multiplayer?
I didn't even know Donkey Kong 64 had.
Okay, so there's a multiplayer where each of your characters get their weapon, their gun that they use, and you go around in an arena and you fight and you shoot each other and going around.
It kind of sounds like the Conquer one in Live and Reloaded.
So when playing this, it is a different, obviously because you're a car and going around, but like a lot of the way like it's set up felt to me like kind of that Donkey Kong 64 multiplayer, just like built out to the extreme with extreme HP and less damage and more carnage, but like a very similar feel to it. At least when I'm sitting down and playing it, the fun of that multiplayer that I played a lot versus this type of thing. And so it's not a 1-to-1, but for me, kind of the same sort of enjoyment came from it.
Same kind of vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like me some Twisted Metal. I'm not going to say it's like one of my favorite franchises or whatever, but I do really like Twisted Metal. Mm-hmm. It's one of those franchises where, yeah, it has interesting setups and it has some interesting plot points, but at the end of the day, it's serial killers and cars running around blowing each other up. So.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Which when you have your characters being completely moral depravity, you can do whatever you want to them, because at that point you're like, no one's going to be like, we should really not run over the serial killers who have murdered hundreds of people.
Yeah, be kind to that serial killer. Let him get back in his car before you run him over.
Yeah, there's a couple like redeemable characters, like Outlaw, the police car. They usually have a pretty decent person as the driver. In Twisted Metal Black, you have John Doe, who ends up being an FBI agent with amnesia. Possible spoilers for the series because the main character's named John Doe.
Oh, but I thought he was just like a made up character.
No, he's from the games.
Oh, all right then. Well, that gives me a little bit more hope for the series.
Not me. Anyway, but yeah, it's for the most part they're all serial killers. They're all pretty terrible people, and even the people who aren't that terrible are, angry sons of bitches who need that release.
Men will get in a car full of guns and shoot each other before going to
therapy.
But that is...
Man, I would hate to be the therapist of any character in this series.
Yeah, seriously. But I think before we get kind of into the multiplayer and talk about a lot of that in our experience here, Thomas, you did play a bunch of the single player.
Yeah, I managed to fully complete Sweet Tooth story.
It's, from what I understand, what it's seen, it's short. That's its biggest complaint.
It's short. Honestly, that's not really a complaint with me. My complaint is that the structure of the campaign is weird. Like, there's some weird missions where I'm like, well, now why did you do that? In particular, there's races, which I get it, car race, boom, boom, but these controls aren't really made for that. At least not in the way they're structured. Because like you can turn on a dime.
Yeah.
Like, you can do a full 90-degree turn on a dime, but your cars also fly all over the place. These don't feel like actual cars. They feel like Hot Wheels, which is fine for like, the
Demolition Derby,
Demolition Derby shit. But when it comes to racing, they feel so light and loose that you turn and then you're flying off a cliff and it's like, what happened?
It kind of sounds like trying to do a kart racer on a slip and slide.
Kind of, yeah. That's almost how it feels. But then there's other missions like Juggernaut, the big fuck off semi truck. You have to blow it up in 3 minutes, otherwise it keeps spawning enemies. And
jeez,
it's the most pain in the ass thing.
That sounds annoying.
Goodness.
So
yeah,
I guess do that.
You want to know how I did it?
Did you change the game?
Yeah, thank God for Death Warrant.
Wow.
Because I drove into him, kept driving, and I basically, like I said, there's 3 minutes. So the first 2 minutes, I ran around picking up every fucking weapon I could. Then the third in the third minute, I rammed him in the grill and just started unloading every weapon I had. I was getting shot from every angle because I didn't kill any of the guys, but I didn't care, so I took him out.
Wow. So you did, in a way, kind of cheese the game, but...
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, a game like this, and when we were sitting down and finally played, it has a lot of different ways to play it. Of course, I found out, if I just take a semi and battering ram my way through the game, that I had a lot of success.
Yeah, it was that it didn't feel as fun playing like that as it was like being down like in a smaller car and actually shooting people, but it was effective.
It sounds like that is the most fun I've had in my entire life.
Exactly. I got just take old out of being able to go up slightly up on the incline and then turn and just come back down and just bowl into 4 cars coming at me.
You were like a wrecking ball.
You really were.
It was a fun way to play the game. There's a decent amount of vehicles that you can choose from.
I like the variety because there's big cars, there's small cars, there's a helicopter, which sucks balls.
Yeah.
There's a massive wheelchair, basically.
Axle for
Twisted
Metal fans.
Yeah, it's just 2 wheels and a dude.
It's basically 2 big ass tractor tires and a dude who has guns attached to him.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you can expect absolute carnage in this game. I think mechanic-wise, again, we're mostly talking about the multiplayer here, but mechanic-wise, this game works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never feel like you don't have enough ammo because you have your weaker gun.
Yeah, you have your machine, you have your sidearm, which is basically unlimited ammo.
But you can always pick up other more powerful stuff. Sometimes it's like, okay, a little bit too much HP and how much damage you can take, but for the way it's set up, unlike say something like when we played Family Guy, when it's like it's really annoying how many shots
like
because you have a finite number of ammo, because no matter what you have an infinite ammo weapon, that taking that many hits to kill someone it feels fine.
There are some times where I'm like, you are on the last sliver of health, but you've been on that for 5 minutes, motherfucker. But
why won't you just die?
But like, I don't mind that as much here as I do in Family Guy, because I think the game is just personally funner.
Yes,
And
I very much agree.
More fun. Yeah.
No, we're gonna go with funner.
I don't care.
It's a game about serial killers smacking into each other. Yeah, funner works.
Funner works.
And 2, they are in cars. So it makes sense that they'd be durable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially the bigger ones. But even the smaller ones, it's like, yeah, you're gonna absorb bullets, you know.
Unless you're Reaper, poor Reaper.
Yeah,
poor Reaper.
Reaper's the motorcycle, and wow, there are people who are really good with Reaper. There are people who can just clear this entire story mode with Reaper. I'm sure. I ain't one of them.
Oh shoot, what's the helicopter called?
Talon.
Talon's also pretty weak, but it's a helicopter.
You can go up really high as well.
Yeah,
so like,
Talon, I did not find fun to play as.
Control wise, it is what it is.
It's,
it's the unique vehicle in a game that is almost exclusively cars.
Yeah.
So and they get the cars right. It's not like it's really bad controls on Talon. It's just it's not as effective.
I'm just saying that's like my one thing. I did not find Talon fun, but that's like, this game is a lot like a fighting game. Mm-hmm. If there's a character I don't find fun, there is the magical option I have that costs $4.99 in any store. I don't have to pick that character.
Yep.
So
you play it. Yeah, you can just play as any other character.
Yeah, and this I can play as basically any other car. I have my favorites. I love Death Warrant and Outlaw. Those are my 2 that I love those 2.
Doctor, this game sucks when I play as that one character. So stop playing as that one character.
I don't know what you talk about. I have to get good with all of them.
One of the big things, or at least the selling points of this game, is destructible. The destructibility of everything.
Yeah. And it's not like every single little thing is destructible, because no game is ever going to have 100% destructible environments.
But it is very fun to drive through houses and trees and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, did it lead to chaos in one of them when I crashed into a supermarket and then everyone followed me, but you couldn't go through the other wall, so like everyone having to turn around? Yeah, and it was absolute chaos and entertaining. Sure. Would I wish I could have just launched through that wall? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of. One of the things, last season we played Flat Out 2. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's always kind of stuck with me is one bit where you can basically drift through a set of windows.
Yes. Which in that game, we're like, man, I wish you could do that more often.
And in this game, it's like, all right, here's a house. Drive through it. So.
Yeah, who put this house in the middle of this perfectly good road? Everything's a road if you're fast enough and big enough.
But there's also environments that are up on a skyscraper. The
skyline.
What do we call the weird dome one that has like lava below and the?
That's the arena.
It's an arena. Okay.
Yeah, And
that one, I got trapped in a room in that one and died.
Yeah,
that was pretty annoying.
that's get good. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, get good.
I wish that would have just killed me instantly so I could get back and actually.
Yeah, I think there was a way out of it. I
There is.
didn't
It's
know
just
what the hell it was.
There's not a lot of differentiation between the levels, but there's enough to keep each one fresh.
A lot of it's more aesthetic things, but even then, maybe you want to drift and shoot Gatling guns on this oil rig, basically. Or maybe you want to do it in suburbia. Or maybe you want to do it on the skies of LA. Why do you want to do that one?
There was a lot of driving off the top of the building.
Yeah, well, it's a Twisted Metal tradition is... Usually it's the last level of the campaign, actually, is the last arena is the high rise. Like, it's the up high one. Now, if you're like me, I'm like, bitches. Like, I'm getting through the game fine, and bitches.
I keep driving off the edge.
Yeah, so really good level design. Like, that's something that overall, even if they do kind of, like, they aren't that different, I do think the design really stands out. It's pretty good.
I personally, my favorite level was probably the carnival. I love driving around the carnival.
I love chasing people on the roller coaster.
Yeah, I love just looking at the whatever was the entrance to the fun house. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I wanted to call it the House of Fun.
I mean, it might be that.
Same thing.
I like looking at the big clown head that's in there, and you can just ram through it. And that's especially funny if you're Sweet Tooth, I'm not going to lie.
This is clown on clown.
Clown
fighting.
on clown violence. Also politics.
I said more. I would have liked more. Just more destructibility, more stuff. There is a little bit once you've played some of the levels a few times. There is kind of a like, well, it's fun, but also it's a little empty. Like, making a little bit more. Again, you can fill that with all the other cars and have fun still with it. But there is definitely a little bit of like everything is very the environment is very basic. Yeah. And so the more you play it, the more you're just like, oh yeah, it's just a little devoid of stuff. Which again this is not a complaint or even saying it's a bad thing, but definitely something that, like, especially moving forward, if they ever do something like this again in the future, that with modern systems, you can't have it that empty.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, again, I think my favorite level was the amusement park one, because that's the only one that felt like it was just packed to the...
Yeah, and not because it was small, because, the arena feels very small, or the skyline feels very small.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this one feels big, but still packed to the brim with content. Mm-hmm. It kind of almost felt like a Tony Hawk level.
It did, yeah. Or, World Tour,
Well, I've watched that episode.
The true Tony Hawk.
Let's not compare good games with bad games here.
You're right. Why are we talking about Twisted Metal?
Yeah, we should be talking about World Tour.
No.
I'm kidding, obviously. But one of the things about this is, actually, I like the lighting in this game, and that's a weird thing.
Yes.
Or rather, the weather. Mm-hmm. Because I noticed it in California, where that's one of the levels. And it starts off just sunny, and it's like a sunset. Yeah. But then I drove up onto a building at one point because
because you can.
Because you can.
I saw a storm like rolling in, and I'm like, oh,
I did see that.
It's actually pretty badass. Like, I like that.
And then there was also like one of the weapons made like lightning to go with it, and it looked really cool.
Yeah. There are some really cool environment aspects to it. Yeah. And graphically, I think we've talked before with the little bit of PS3 we played. There are some PS3 games that graphics are, because they were learning. It's a very complex system that jumped so much from the previous generation. Mm-hmm. So, but I really think this game's graphics are pretty good, especially for what it's doing.
They were really good.
It is pretty good.
They were really good at utilizing the technology that they had.
And if they couldn't do something, taking the smart shortcuts to make it look still great.
They make what needs to look good. Mm-hmm. Like the cars look pretty badass. Yeah. The explosions. The
less worrying about realism and more about coolness. You know, is it real to have my slow moving truck hitting your little car and you go 80 feet in the air? No, but it is an awesome. Yeah.
Is it realistic to have a big SUV with pulleys kind of like spray painted on there, wrapped in barbed wire and having a cow front on it? No. Is it rad as shit? Yeah.
Is it realistic to have an ice cream truck that turns into a mech? I think that one answers itself anyways.
That is probably the most real thing that we have here. I mean, that you just go down any street, you're going to definitely see the ice cream mechs.
Anyways, kind of going back to the talking about the environments. I think I kind of appreciated how more open the environments were, mainly because these are vehicles that are that really fast, and a lot of them are really big. And if there were a lot of things in the way to run into, that would get really annoying really fast.
Yeah, that's why I think the destructible environments also help, because
yes.
There's something in my way. Neat. I'm in a truck. You are not. I am God. Ram through it. So.
That's what happens when an unstoppable force meets a very movable object. But I do appreciate it for that, and it's kind of interesting that the arenas feel kind of tight, but yet kind of open at the unless you're like the only two characters on the map, which we did start out with that because we forgot to add bots.
That was a mistake.
Yeah,
unless you're the only two people in the maps, it's very hard to get lost.
You can get to kind of the multiplayer, because again, the multiplayer is designed for big online matches, 16-player online matches. So when you start, if you don't put on computer characters in the local multiplayer, that's when it feels really wide and open, and you know it's less. Some of the chaos and fun isn't necessarily always there.
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's bad, but it's definitely something that's like, oh, this is a lot more fun with 10 plus people racing around. It could have up to 4 local players, plus I would assume 12 bots to get to the 16. So
definitely.
So that definitely is an aspect to it that you need to make sure is on if you want to really enjoy the demolition feel.
Yeah.
I guess the thing that really stuck out to me when playing, even more than say like any of the arenas or the gameplay, I love the way they map and how these controls work.
Yeah.
And again, the way we had them set up.
Just the way we had them set up. There's the classic twisted metal controls. That is not what we went with.
Yeah.
We went with what's called the race controls, which is R2 and L2 are your gas and brake, and L1 is your drift. Square and circle are your
having
weapons.
That option,
or square and X are your weapons.
Having that option to be able to go to that control setup compared to the classic setup, so good.
It was like when we played Nightfire
and
changed between the classic Bond gameplay and the normie first person shooter gameplay. It's a nice feature to have.
Yeah, and being able to make it work really well. And so when we were mapped to this way, the racer setup, it might be some of the best car controls I've utilized, because both having your acceleration and brake right up and easy to hit, right next to your drift, it's so easy to be able to do everything. And so that was really, really nice. So
it definitely made things easier for us, which definitely helped with the
experience.
Enjoyment. With the experience, exactly.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm kind of used to classic Twisted Metal controls, so I might have been fine. I kind of worry if like you guys were just shoved in there without any warning.
Yeah,
and had to do.
The only other thing I have left on the gameplay to talk about is it's got an okay camera. It's fine.
I didn't mind it.
If you get, it's perfectly fine 90% of the time. 10% of the time, if you get stuck, and especially when you're a big rig, if you get stuck and you're looking inside, which again, this happens on games now. So like it's not a thing. But if you get stuck at a corner and you can't move very well, and the camera's inside there, and again, you have a lot of different camera options. You can switch the camera around so they're there. But the main camera, it can get stuck a few times, and that is a little frustrating. But overall, it is a very solid and functioning camera.
Yeah. Again, I think that's mainly if you're just playing one of the really big vehicles, like, Juggernaut, Darkseid, one of those guys.
I think so.
Yeah. On presentation, I'll say I love this damn soundtrack.
Ooh,
Yes.
yeah. Ooh,
Very good
yeah.
soundtrack.
Very good.
It wasn't the experience I had with these guys, but I was playing the single player, and it was one of the death matches, so I cannot begin to tell you the amount of psychotic glee I felt when I'm driving around, missiles loaded, machine gun going off, and Rob Zombie's Dragula breaks out.
Yeah. It was a very, very good soundtrack.
It reminded me
Kind of a good mixture of licensed music, but also there was just some orchestral stuff in there, and it was just really good.
It reminded me of when we played Flat Out and
Yes.
the soundtrack in that. It's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think Rob Zombie is on both.
I think he is, yeah, because I think Super Beast is in Flat Out. But the single player, which we mentioned briefly, like I said, the structure is weird. What's also weird about it, kind of bringing it out of nowhere, I'm going to admit. What's also weird about it is the cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that people did criticize about this game, the story doesn't really match the tone of the game.
Yeah.
Because the game is really super psychotic fun. You drive around, you blow people's cars up, you run over their flailing, burning bodies, and then you kind of move on and you have a fun time and eat ice cream or whatever.
And then they're like, here, enjoy the most messed up cutscenes you've ever seen.
Yeah.
We didn't mention that when before, but if you run over people as they fly out of their cars, you get health back.
Yeah,
which is very funny.
It's that's funny, but again, the story just does not fit the tone. I feel like you still obviously have to make it kind of dark because this is no pun intended, a twisted series. But I think
the multiplayer feels more so. This is kind of the way that I looked at, and again, without really playing much the single player, but taking the cinematic cutscenes, is the gameplay feels like Evil Dead 2. The cinematic cutscenes feel like the Evil Dead remake.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it is.
Yeah, it's very, very clashing tones.
Yeah, and again, I personally prefer when Twisted Metal has the kind of brighter tone. Not brighter, but more messed up funny than messed up ugh.
Yeah.
And like Twisted Metal Black also kind of does the more depressed, dour, dark tone. And while that's fine, it's just not my cup of tea. I prefer when Twisted Metal goes full whole hog, nutso, ballistic bonkers kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely something from it.
That was probably an attempt to do kind of like the gritty reboot type thing.
Probably.
Which I think was kind of starting at this point.
We were kind of moving on from that at this point, because gritty reboots had been like really big in like the mid the late PS2 era, so we're kind of starting to come out of the gritty reboots at this point.
But we were admittedly still in that era
of everything had to be dark and a lot darker.
Remember, this was only like 4 years after Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Which affected the whole entertainment industry.
Very, very much. And so the gritty reboots or the gritty takes on characters was still a big thing. So yeah, I think maybe that was, but there's definitely a tonal clash between gameplay and story.
Yeah, and again, that's a nitpick because I don't have to interact with the story that much. I can skip the cutscenes.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So.
But yeah, if you want to enjoy and go through for the story, it is a little bit of whiplash there.
And there is also this is incredibly nitpicky, so this does not affect my enjoyment of the game at all. I don't like that you only have 3 characters to pick from.
Yes!
Scandalous! No.
But no, that is, for a game that is so much on different customization, different characters, being able to do crazy things, it's wild that the story mode only has 3 characters, and while there's a good amount of vehicles in the multiplayer, it still feels like there would be a whole lot more.
Because how Twisted Metal usually works is, again, like a fighting game. You pick your vehicle, that vehicle has an assigned driver, you go through, you get their ending. That's kind of how Twisted Metal works, and that is the version I prefer.
Yeah.
Because you can get a lot more fun characters. One of my favorite characters is actually from Twisted Metal Black. This dude named No Face. Who...
What is he? I wonder what he looks like.
His eyes have been gouged out and sewn up, and his lips have been sewn up.
Oh,
So gross, yeah.
Yeah,
That
and he
checks
has no
out.
nose. So
Oh.
basically, the whole thing is he's a boxer who loses a fight, and the surgeon who was supposed to fix him bet the farm on him. So in vengeance, in surgery, he cuts out his tongue and sews up his eyes and everything. So, and like that's one of my favorite characters because his whole thing is, he just goes up to Calypso and he goes, "Yeah, I want the surgeon. I want to fucking kill him." And Calypso, in one of the few times he's not a dick, is like sick.
And he does it.
Yeah, and on the complete opposite end from the first Twisted Metal game, there's a monster truck named Thrasher, who is
That is such a monster
who's
truck.
driven by like two dumbass frat bros. And this was actually fun Twisted Metal tangent. There were two kind of endings for the original game. One was this live action FMV stuff, but they were cut out and replaced with just text files. The FMV for Thrasher is one of my favorite endings in all Twisted Metal because it's so fucking funny. They win Twisted Metal, but they look at each other and they're like, "We don't have a wish." "Yeah, we forgot to think about one." And Calypso's like, "Gentlemen, what do you want?" And they look at each other, smiles like, "We want babes." And Calypso immediately says, "Done." And just a bunch of supermodels come. And again, it's one of the times where Calypso isn't a dick. He just gives them their wish scot-free. That's so funny to me. But that's kind of that variety, that kind of fun characterization. It is kind of missing from this game. So...
Yeah, just a little bit. I think the only other, I don't even want to say nitpick, because I think 99% of this works in the game, because the UI is really cool and looking and all the things. Indie multiplayer screen is just... It just happens.
Yeah.
And there's no pomp and circumstance, and I'm like, for a game with this much, presentation attempts and things like that, and all those crazy stuff that they're trying to do, it feels really weird that there's no pomp and circumstance for winning.
I think Mason brought up Call of Duty earlier. I think they should have done a Call of Duty where it ends in slow motion, you get the final kill.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Maybe give it cinematic camera angles or something.
We're splitting hairs and nitpicking to find complaints. This game is really fun, and overall is a good game.
It's a fun ass game.
I'd put it a 7.5 out of 10.
I'd pick it up. It's a fun game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially if you're wanting to hang out with friends and sit on the couch and you have your old PS3. This is a great game to boot out and just to have a fun night.
This is absolutely recommend. Yeah.
Especially because it's probably not that expensive these days.
No, I mean I think it was $30 when I picked it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not my favorite Twisted Metal game, but it's fun because Twisted Metal is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. It's basic mathematics. If X is fun, X will always be fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, on this podcast, we like to ask two important questions of every game that we play. The first one is, how does this game hold up?
Really, really well. I think of all the PlayStation 3 games that we've played, I think this one's held up the best.
Between this and Stranglehold.
Yeah, I think this.
I think Twisted Metal holds up even better than Stranglehold. To be honest, I think it looks better.
Yeah,
I think both are equally fun. I think Twisted Metal gets the edge in visuals.
I think
that's fair.
Twisted Metal looks a little bit better, is held up graphically a little bit better. Both have really good controls. Any of the complaints that you'd have, you would have had back then.
Yeah.
I think Twisted Metal, because of the multiplayer experience, that will probably still be fun 10, 15, 20 years down the line, whereas I don't know if 15 years from now how well Stranglehold, how much... It'll still probably be good, but it might dip a little bit more. I think this one will continue to hold up better and better.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's kind of my thing on that, but... Yeah, it holds up really well. The things that were good about it when it came out are still really good. The things that were bad about it when it came out are still the problem, things like that.
It's a fun. I do recommend this game.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like this is with Stranglehold or G.I. Joe that we played on the PS3. Those two are the ones that come to mind more than anything else. I know we've played several others, but those ones are the ones that pop in my head. That's those feel like PS3 games, and Twisted Metal's one that kind of this does just feel like a game. You know, you could have told me it's on any system, and I would believe you. Or it came out in any era, and I would believe you because it feels like a game that can just be played.
Right.
So, the second question that we ask of every game that we play: would you like to see a remake or a reimagining of this game in a modern setting?
All right, hear me out.
Christ.
Cats.
No. Twisted Metal. Battle Royale.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
I mean, come on.
It fits very much to what people are playing a lot of these days.
Yeah.
It's like Fortnite, but it's Twisted Metal. I would absolutely play that.
I don't know if I'd want a remake of this game. I would definitely take a remaster or just, again, like dropping it on the stores. Because I think it would play it plays so well that I don't think it needs a remake. Would I like another Twisted Metal that uses a lot of the same multiplayer stuff, but maybe gives you more characters, more customization, more destructibility, maybe a more tonally equivalent story? Yeah, so like I think a sequel is kind of, or a sequel or a
just
reboot
a
of
Twisted
or a reboot of the story, but not necessarily a reboot of this exact game.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm kind of with Sean. I don't necessarily want this game to be remade and remastered. If it was dropped on the PlayStation Store, I'd buy it.
Yeah,
But
what do you mean? You already have it.
yeah, but being able to play it, like, I would love to play it on the PS5. I would love to play it.
But I think more than anything, I would just like a new Twisted Metal.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
That's probably the show. It's all probably relying on the show to see what
that's the hope, I think.
Is.
Especially considering where kind of gaming is. A lot of times you're either dark fantasy farming sim or a arena shooter Fortnite style, and so like it kind of fits in with what is people like these days. So it is a surprising franchise that has not been revisited.
Yeah. Now.
In a decade.
Yeah. So now, I personally do not have that much faith in the Twisted Metal show, but we will see.
We'll see. Or, with anything, hopefully. But yeah, that's Twisted Metal. But what do you guys think? Do you like this game? Or if you don't, what is your favorite Twisted Metal? You can let us know by sending us an email to bleepyouplaying@gmail.com.
It's 2. If I got it right, you owe me $1.
That's bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. Or if you'd like us to play a game, you can suggest one to us. Either a game or a movie, you can tell us to play or watch by subscribing on our Patreon, patreon.com/whatthebleep, to our Super Bleephead tier. For $15 a month, you can tell us what to play or what to watch, and we will do it as long as it doesn't break the bank. That's patreon.com/whatthebleep. We'll be back next time. Rock the dragon.
I liked it.